Good morning and welcome to our service. I am your service coordinator, Jenny Gimignani, on this refreshing March morning. Congratulations to you for being here and obviously remembering to spring forward. We got our very own Reverend Cynthia Cain as our minister and speaker today. Scott is our Zoom host with Jesse and Karen co-hosting. Sandy is at GNUUC to allow us the gift of seeing our very own chalice in the beautiful display she always creates. The little fairy house you will notice on the altar today was created by a former member, Twyla McClellan. So thank you, Sandy, for putting that together. I've been looking forward to seeing your faces all week. The deep breath and the joy of connection, even on this one-year landmark of being physically distant. Let us celebrate this week's service together. Thank you for lighting our chalice while we share the opening words Reverend Cynthia chose for us. From Reverend Rebecca Parker, our chalice lighting today is called Covenant. Let us covenant with one another to keep faith with the source of life, knowing that we are not our own, earth made us. Let us covenant with one another to keep faith with the community of resistance, never to forget that life can be saved from that which threatens it by even small bands of people choosing to put into practice an alternate way of life. And let us covenant with one another to seek for an even deeper awareness of that which springs up inwardly in us. Even when our hearts are broken by our own failure or the failure of others cutting into our lives, even when we have done all we can and life is still broken, there is a universal love that has never broken faith with us and never will. This is our ground of hope and the reason we can be bold in seeking to fulfill the promise. There are any number of reasons to reach out to Reverend Cynthia. Text her a spring flower picture. Let her know when one of her Lenten messages has sparked an insight for you. Certainly, if you've had a loss or illness or a need for food or shelter or any sort of care, she would love to hear from you. And if you need something concerning worship or the board or the social justice team, Reverend Cynthia can help direct you, or you also have the option of contacting our admin, Chris, at gnuuc@gnuuc.org. She helps keep all of us connected too. And we say our covenant each week. My family has its own covenant posted on our fridge. It's only simple statements about speaking your truth and loving yourself, passing grace to each other, but it has made us stronger and more connected. And that has been one of the gifts of Unitarian Universalism for me. Being a UU introduced me to the idea of covenant, setting of boundaries while deepening connections. Join me in reading our shared covenant. Covenant together to make a welcoming community, to walk together in the way of truth and love, to seek the life of the Spirit as it is known by each person, to support each other in thought, word, and deed as we work to build a better world. Walk together has taken different forms over this last year, but I'm still grateful to be on this path to a better world with all of you. With that theme of community and happiness in mind, Reverend Cynthia chose When the Spirit Says Do for our first shared song today. Please sing out as the joy leads you.
You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. When the Spirit says dance, you gotta dance, oh Lord. You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. Spirit says dance, 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 Spirit says dance. You gotta laugh when the Spirit says laugh. You gotta laugh when the Spirit says laugh. When the Spirit says laugh, you gotta laugh, oh Lord. You gotta laugh when the Spirit says laugh. Spirit says laugh, 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 Spirit says laugh. You gotta shout when the Spirit says shout. You gotta shout when the Spirit says shout. When the Spirit says shout, you gotta shout, oh Lord. You gotta shout when the Spirit says shout. Spirit says shout, 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 Spirit says shout. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do, oh Lord. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. Spirit says do, 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 Spirit says do. Spirit says do.
I love that guy. He's a music director, and you know, our music directors, our Unitarian Universalist music directors have been, yeah, they've been put in cold storage for a year. Singing especially has been discouraged and will be for some time to come. But there has been some sharing, you know, on Zoom that's been wonderful because people have been able to experience back and forth. And our dear Fran has been so gracious, uh, encouraging us and celebrating with us so many different kinds of music and different music from other congregations. It's time for All Sages, and I have a little story for all of you today. It's about a place that doesn't exist now, but used to in Los Angeles, and it's called Sunset Hall. This was a retirement home that was started from the First Unitarian Church of Los Angeles. And if you were with us last time I spoke, which was, I think, 2 weeks ago or maybe 3, Scott and Jesse were portraying 2 different ministers, and the one that Scott portrayed was Stephen Fritchman, and he was the minister at First Unitarian LA during the time of the McCarthy hearings and the communist scare. And First Church LA was particularly a hotbed of, you know, communist sympathizers, and many of these people were Jewish refugees and children of Jewish refugees who were socialist and supported labor unions and were very, very liberal and were deemed communists, although, you know, not that many of them were actual communists, but they were blacklisted. And they started, the church itself started this retirement home. I got to visit there when I was studying for the ministry, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it in my sermon. There's a movie about it. I bought the video, so I'll figure out a way to share the whole movie with you somehow. But this is a brief introduction to Sunset Hall, and the people there were so wonderful. I got to visit about 30 years ago. Enjoy the video.
Got your cane?
Where is it? Oh,
Are we connected?
not yet. Okay.
Connected?
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
Okay. Don't go too fast.
No, I'm not going too fast. Has everyone registered to vote here? Do it right now.
She's much more upbeat than I am because I see things as they are. I like it very natural.
Lucille walked in and she said, I talk a lot. Well, that appealed to me because I finally had somebody I could talk to. See how I match?
I'm Thoreau and she's Emerson, you know. And I'll often say to her, we don't have to agree on this, do we? And she says, no.
Don't you do that?
No.
No.
And not only that, she's been more Jewish since I'm here than I ever was my whole life.
Are you a Democrat? Good. Oh, that's so greasy. Look at it. We need a new cook.
Wunderbar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You strike me as magical.
For all lang syne, my dear, for all.
I feel that life has to keep going on. There is so much to learn. And you can't do it in one lifetime.
Sing days of old lang syne, my dear, sing days of old lang syne.
Our Share the Plate partner for March is the Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee. Second Harvest's 2020 numbers are there on your screen. 36.5 million meals, 10.8 million pounds of fresh produce, and 96 cents of every dollar is used to get food into bellies. They are doing valuable, necessary work, and we're supporting them in doing it. Please donate generously to Second Harvest as our Share the Plate organization for March in any of the ways shown on the screen. To give your time, to choose your path for donation, to give you time to choose your path for donation, here's a short video showing various food outreach opportunities in the 46 counties Second Harvest serves around us. Thank you for doing what you can. Our meditation today is a poem from Linda Pastan called Spring. After I read the poem, we'll have a few seconds of quiet time for reflection, and then the music step by step. When we get to the music, we're going to go through it twice. This music is in our hymnal, but I think most of us are not familiar with it. It was written by Waldemar Hill. He was a resident at Sunset Hall, and he was the music director at First Church, Los Angeles for 35 years. And he was still there when I visited in about 1990 or 91. And he was a labor advocate. He wrote songs for Pete Seeger. He was the music director at Highlander, before he went to Los Angeles. And he wrote the song that we are going to sing together after the meditation. We'll go through it twice. First time you can listen, and second time you'll be able to sing along with Step by Step, which was a union song. So here's the poem. Just as we lose hope, she ambles in, a late guest dragging her hem of wildflowers, her torn veil of mist, of light rain, blowing her dandelion breath in our ears, and we forgive her. Turning from chilly winter ways, we throw off our faithful sweaters and open our arms. And as you sit quietly for a bit, think about who you can forgive and to what can you open your arms today. Let's be in silence.
Step by step, the longest march can be won, can be won. Many stones can form an arch, singly none, singly none. And by union, what we will can be accomplished still. Drops of water turn a mill, singly none, singly none. Step by step, the longest march can be won, can be won. Many stones can form an arch, singly none, singly none. And by union, what we will can be accomplished still. Drops of water turn a mill, singly none, singly none. form an arch, singly none, and by union what we will can be accomplished still. Drops of water turn a mill, singly none, singly none.
I've already confessed to you that I'm fascinated with cults. I might say obsessed with cults, but that makes me sound a little cultish myself. I have been so interested in cults for such a long time, but you will be spared my 2-part sermon series about cults because I left all my old sermon material, sermon notes, and sermon files in Nashville exactly 1 year ago today, along with some of my clothes, my makeup, my earrings, which I haven't really needed, and my bicycle. But on April 15th, I will be 2 weeks past my second vaccine, and I shall come in person to see some of you safely and also my bike. But really, it's human nature that I love to study. And cults are a lens into one of our most fascinating human traits, control and manipulation. Also, evil. And human evil is something that I've thought about for a long time. Abuse and violence. So I gave in and watched, and gave in is, well, that's kind of the wrong words to choose because I really wanted to watch it. But I watched the HBO miniseries about the NXIVM cult. I had to borrow my daughter-in-law's HBO. NXIVM, you may have watched it and you may or may not have read about it in the New York Times a year or two ago. The series was called The Vow, and I'll admit, I didn't have very much sympathy for the victims of this particular cult. They were almost all white, very wealthy, successful, thin, and extremely self-confident, or at least they appeared to be self-confident. Even when they escaped from the cult and claimed to have nothing, they still looked pretty comfortable. They were still eating avocados and hanging out in beachside houses in Malibu. And let me be clear, I'm not making fun of these people. They may have been victims in some way, but the ones who made the videos were perpetrators as well, and they just got out in time. But the topic this month isn't cults, it's commitment. Today, commitment and happiness. You couldn't picture a more joyful looking group of people than the NXIVM ESP gang. ESP was their special group that stood for Executive Success Program. They were always playing volleyball, taking walks, eating pizza, jumping up and down and cheering, giving each other awards. Oh, and kissing their leader and each other on the lips. What could be better? Okay, I would have been out at the kissing on the lips. That is just, for me, no. But as time passed, the control grew, and so did the ask for commitment. And this is when watching this series made me think that there was a connection to what I wanted to talk to you about this month. When a secret women's group was formed, The members were asked to give collateral to ensure their commitment. Collateral included nude photos, incriminating emails and tapes, and being branded with the initials of the cult leader, as well as the actress who started the women's group. His name was Keith Raniere, and her name was Allison Mack, and she was apparently a well-known actress, although I guess I'm out of the loop because I didn't know who she was. In October 2020, so not very long ago, he was sentenced to 120 years in prison, and she is awaiting sentencing. This is such a clear example of cult indoctrination that we get it. It went from a sort of a multi-level marketing, self-improvement program to a sex cult. But they marketed themselves to even to each other as, we are going to improve the world. In fact, we are going to fix the whole world. So they ostensibly had this noble goal of fixing the world, of enlightening the world. So our only question is, how did smart, educated, talented, savvy people fall for this? After the last 4 years, we may not even wonder. I mean, everyone who fell for Trump and his 30,573 lies were not the so-called Neanderthals who followed their dear leader right up the steps and into the Capitol building. There were educated, successful, otherwise intelligent people who followed him as well. The Dalai Lama was fooled by the NXIVM cult leaders. He actually sort of, put his stamp of approval on them for a period of time. UU ministers and congregations were taken in by Jim Jones. He spoke at UU congregations in the Bay Area. I don't know how many Unitarians or former Unitarians went to Jonestown, but I'm told that some did. Any human can be susceptible to manipulation and self-deception. I have been, have you? I think if we look at ourselves honestly, we have to admit that there have been times when we have deceived ourselves. I think one of the best things about Unitarian Universalism and about our congregations and our families is that we teach our young people to question, question, question. Skepticism and doubt are part of our curriculum. Cynicism even has its place. Matt Groening, who wrote The Simpsons, created The Simpsons, and Dave Chappelle, the comedian, they were both raised by UU parents. I listened to a talk called The Choices That Shape Your Life by the New York Times columnist David Brooks. He's conservative, but he's often insightful. He says there are 4 levels of happiness. First level is material pleasure, having things, a nice home, belongings, clothes, a car, being able to travel, material happiness. Second level is ego competitive happiness. You're winning, you have the best job, you have the degree, you're higher class than other people. Third level is generative. This is the happiness that comes from helping others, from giving, from leaving something behind, from helping make the world a better place. The fourth and highest level is transcendence. So that's something I'd like to talk about for a few minutes. He says transcendence is when we achieve what he calls our eulogy virtues. I really like this. It's when we transcend material success and acquisition and competitive success and realize the virtues that are at the core of being, the ones people will cite when they give our eulogy. This level of happiness, he says, can only come through our commitments. And that brings me back to commitments. According to Brooks, there are 4 big commitments. Here's what he says. The first one is spouse or family. I would open that up to mean family in the broadest sense. You know, you and your pets, your chosen family. Second big commitment, your vocation. What it is you've chosen to do with your life, either to, earn an income or to make your contribution. Third is, I lost my place. There's your philosophy or your faith. What do you believe in? What is most important to you? And fourth is your community. Your community. Now, you might not agree that those are the 4 big commitments or the 4 most important commitments, but I think they're a useful, starting point for a discussion about happiness. What he says, what motivates us to make these commitments is love, morality, and being in community. Yes, community is one of the 4 big commitments and one of the things that motivates us to make them. So community is really, really important. So let's talk about that, or I'll talk about it, but we can talk after the service. We here are a community. When you joined GNUUC, you became a member of a specific community. You joined a voluntary association. We're not a cult, in spite of what your second cousin might tell you. Not only did it help shape you, your values, and your faith, but you helped shape the community. For me, being a part of GNUUC, even though I'll be moving on in several months, it has changed me. It has made me a better person. You have taught me so much, and I really feel that you will always be a part of me. And I hope that in some ways I will be a part of the history of GNUUC. But when you joined, you also made a commitment. No, we won't be asking for collateral. You can keep your nude photos. And okay, I have to laugh when I think about this, because when I went to SUSE, I used to go to SUSE, possibly some of you went there because it's the Southeast Unitarian Universalist Summer Institute, or it used to be. They had nude hikes. Who wants to go on nude hikes in the first place? You can tell I'm from New Jersey because this kissing on the lips and the nude hikes is just not me. I'm not a California person, but also if I did want to go on nude hikes, it wouldn't be with Unitarian Universalists. You know what I'm saying? All right. Now, no collateral. We will not be having you branded with the UU chalice. When my one tattoo, I was around 50, so I was telling my kids, I'm going to get a tattoo. I don't even know why. That's the only one. They were like, my sons were like, Mom, whatever you do, please do not get a UU chalice. It's just so, predictable. And if you have a UU chalice tattoo, I'm sorry. There's some very lovely ones, but that was what they said to me. No branding, no nude photos, and no collateral. But we do ask you for a commitment of your time, your energy, your participation, be a part of things, and money as you are able. I have found in life that if I pay for something, I will do it. Jazzercise online, meditation. I am showing up there 3 times a week because I pay for it. Spiritual director training, getting an MFA. I wrote 3 novels because I paid. Weight Watchers, you name it. If I made a commitment by signing up and paying, sometimes more than I really wanted to pay, sometimes enough that it stretches me a little bit, I guarantee I will do the thing that I have signed up for. It has value. It has enhanced my life. It helps me to achieve goals, stay healthy, and remain reasonably happy. We have the responsibility to choose the things that matter to us and then to support them. It doesn't work if the thing that I commit to isn't in line with my values. It wouldn't work if it were, a betting ring or a hedge fund. I don't like gambling, and I don't believe in gambling, and I have a strong aversion to it. These morals or virtues that I have been shaped by decades and years in UU communities, by discussions, by my work in social justice, by my dedication to reading and studying. They're not just something that I pulled out of the air. The kind of happiness that I experience, it's not like the jumping for joy of the Nexium people. That to me is artificial and staged, and my happiness is calmer, but it's the kind that allows me to sleep at night. And this is the kind of commitment and happiness I witnessed when I visited Sunset Hall in the early 1990s. I was still studying for the ministry, and Valdemar Hill was living there at the time. I really wanted to meet him. They had fended off the first attempt to close the place. I mean, they were $300,000 in debt. Somehow they rallied, they protested. They had little protests, and they kept the place open. But eventually it did have to close. And it closed by, I think, about 2000. There were quite a few residents there. They were outside in the courtyard. They were enjoying the sunshine, chatting, doing some sort of handiwork, playing cards. It's like other retirement homes in some ways, but in others, it was very different. People had all sorts of buttons and slogans, on their sweaters and their jackets. They were engaged in lively conversation, and they were very excited to meet and talk with a UU ministerial student. Many, or maybe all of them, had been members of the first UU church, or the Unitarian Church, when Stephen Fritchman was the minister and was called before the House Un-American Activities Committee. They remembered having Paul Robeson perform there during the McCarthy era. Many of these folks were first and second generation Americans whose families had fled the Nazis or left Europe during earlier waves of Jewish emigration. They were committed. They were committed to social justice, to human rights, to freedom, freedom of belief, freedom of expression. And they participated in the very first labor union battles, and they stayed committed. They had stayed committed. They seemed very happy. Their lives had not been particularly blissful in the material sense. They'd lost spouses, children. If you live long enough, some of your own children may die, and your friends will die. They were not wealthy. Most of them were poor by our standards. They had various illnesses and disabilities. Their happiness came from their communities, First Church Los Angeles and Sunset Hall, their philosophy or faith, and their avocation, fighting for justice. They probably never tried to be happy. And that is how to be happy. Amen. The closing hymn is called Keep Loving.
Whether you're different, same ignorant or intelligent, whether you tell the truth, lie or embellish it, whether you live in gratitude or for the hell of it, it doesn't really matter, it's still one single fellowship. Whether you've been lustful or living celibate, whether you're an optimist or only see the negative, whether you're dead broke or rich from inheritance, doesn't really matter, we're made of the same sediment. Whether you got a family or single parenting, or you're Asian, African, European or American, whether you pray to God or atheist is irrelevant, cause what you got inside is the same as all your preference. It'll change your heart, it'll change your mind, and then you'll start to change. So keep loving, you touch everyone you see, will soon become your family. Do you see yourself in the troubled, in the homeless? Can you say everywhere you are is where your home is? Sharing your heart in the dark just like a lotus, letting your light shine bright so you can flow there. Everlasting love of grace like those did Jesus, Muhammad, Krishna, Buddha, and Moses, who carried the weight of the world upon their shoulders. So every time you fall down, go ahead and hold this close to your heart, cause you're a love soldier, and every time you get a chance, you pay it forward. Moving closer to heaven's gates, we're all soaring. Because of you, love is where we're headed towards. Trying, gotta keep on caring, gotta keep the light on through dark and despair, gotta spread the love where nobody cares. Gotta keep on loving, gotta keep on sharing, gotta keep on trying, gotta keep on caring, gotta keep the light on through dark and despair. So keep loving. It'll change your heart, it'll change your mind, and then you'll start to change. So keep loving. See keep loving. Gotta keep on loving, gotta keep on sharing, gotta keep on trying, gotta keep on caring, gotta keep the light on through dark and despair, gotta spread the love where nobody cares. Gotta keep on loving, gotta keep on sharing, gotta keep on trying, gotta keep on caring, gotta keep the light on through dark and despair. So keep loving. It'll change your heart, it'll change your mind, and then you'll start to change. So keep loving. Touch everyone you see will soon become your friend. So keep loving.
Now is the time in the service when we share joys and concerns. Thank you to those of you who joined us on YouTube, and we hope you will join us again next week. Scott will now turn off our